Hi, I'm Len Wilson. I'm Communications Strategist with Horizon Stewardship. Today I'm sitting with Cliff Christopher, who's founder of Horizon Stewardship, to talk about his book, God versus Money. Cliff, as we continue this conversation, we've been talking about how the financial life of a local church is like a battleground and all the different ways in which that impacts the life of a pastor or a local church leader. And one of the chapters in this book, you talk about special forces as a nice metaphor to talk about how to work with and minister those who have major gift potential.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Are you saying that the pastor should actually treat those folks differently? What do you mean by this special forces angle?
Well, the answer is yes. I do believe a pastor should treat those persons differently, but then I believe a pastor should treat all persons in the life of the church uniquely and differently because they're all unique with what they have been blessed and with and given. So the idea that a pastor should treat all members equally is just, it's a horrible idea. It's talked about a lot, but it's horrible. You got members who are sick and you have members who are well and you have members who are young and members who are old. So yes, it's important for a pastor to look at any of his or her members and learn how to treat them uniquely so that their gifts can best be applied to do two things. One, to help grow the kingdom and to help grow themselves as followers of Christ within that kingdom. So that's a pastor has those two objectives with anybody that he or she is working with. In talking about stewardship in particular in special forces, which is as most everybody knows, a very small segment of our military, the SEALs, the Rangers, and the parajumpers in the Air Force and those types of persons, very uniquely gifted and qualified. They have gifts that the persons in my particular Army unit, for instance, did not have. They simply didn't have those gifts. They could not, as wonderful and good as those several hundred people were that were working with me, none of them were able to do the job that, frankly, 5 or 6 Special Forces troopers could do. But there's a limit to what 5 or 6 can do that it then takes everybody else to fulfill it. The church needs to learn how to work with that minority of persons who have significant wealth, significant gifts and ability to enable mission to occur, but also, frankly, to bring about conditions that then allow the general church itself, the vast majority of those in the pew, to then come in and use their gifts to augment, to help win the total battle. So there's just times that you have to call in others to work with you. And that's, again, where we need to spend that kind of unique focus on trying to identify who are those people that can enable the rest of the people to also succeed.
When you say this word gifts, you're framing it in such a way that's a little nuanced, a little different. So some people may hear the word gifts and think just purely of money.
Yeah.
What I hear you saying is that gifts, as in giftedness, as in spiritual gifts,
right.
That just the way some people might have gifts or administration, that some people have been blessed with the ability to gift the church financially and to think of those folks in that way, not purely in a transactional way, but as a part of what they're bringing as a whole being to the body of Christ.
Yes. And the sad thing is that I've found that pastors are really very comfortable in working with people who have special and unique gifts in almost any arena except with money. And they tend to be very shy in wanting to relate there. I can remember in my own development, when I was in college, I had a minister that knew me and came to me and said, you've got some unique skills and talents to speak, and I know you love the church. Have you considered ministry? And he began to show me how I could take what God had given me and utilize that. He did not come and say to me, we really want you to think about leading with your money. I didn't have any. I was not gifted with any of that at that time, but I had gifts and that pastor worked with me. I think of so many countless instances to where it was not difficult to go and work with someone who had an incredible voice and convince them to use that for worship and et cetera. Persons who have been gifted with money, and they are generally a very small minority of our church, but they are at enormous risk in their spiritual lives, enormous risk Money, it has such a pull and power to control us more than anything else, that our pastors need to get involved and intervene there, much as they would if they saw someone allowing alcohol or drugs or whatever to control them. I think any of our pastors would quickly try to interject themselves into that family in some way to help them overcome this, which is destroying their life. Money can destroy our lives, and it's destroying more lives, frankly, in our churches than drugs and alcohol on any given day. So I want our pastors to learn how to do that, how to relate to these people, how to connect to them, how to help them find Jesus. In finding Jesus, they'll give. They will give. And will find joy and satisfaction and fulfillment from it.
And in this book, Cliff, you're using a military analogy to talk about the financial life of a local church.
Right.
Part of this, as you have said, is based on your own experiences in the field as a chaplain in the U.S. Army. As you've been looking and thinking about your own experiences in relationship to these conversations about church life, you've mentioned about this issue of control and the apparent lack of control you feel as a soldier in the field, and how instructive that is when thinking about the life of leadership in the local church. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think any of our listeners who have been in military service can understand this sense of once you arrive, you lose control. It's the basic purpose of a drill instructor to convince you that you are totally at the mercy of the Army now. You can't even call your mama when you want to. You got to get permission. And that's done for a real purpose. If the Army is going to be successful, it has to be able to count on everybody in its ranks fulfilling the job they're told to do. It's not a democracy. We're not going to have this discussion. You belong to us, in essence. As you spend more time in the military, you become an older soldier, you get a little more freedom to make choices. But those choices you have learned how to make from that early on lack of control. I certainly felt it when I came in, and though I came in as an officer, I had an experience early on in my basic training, had a sick grandmother that I really wanted to get a day off to go see. Shocked me to death. I had to get the Army's permission to go see my grandmother, and the Army said no. I was angry. I wanted to make that choice, and they said it wasn't my choice to make anymore. Control is a huge issue in any of our lives as to what controls us, and it had a lot to do with what I was trying to say in this book. Society is telling us that it wants to be in control of us, that which we aspire to have better titles, higher bank accounts, more stuff in our garage or bigger homes. These things quickly become controlling us. I do what I do so that I will have this stuff in my life. That becomes what's occupying my heart and what's making my decisions as to why I do what I do. It's only in learning how to be generous. It's in learning that we are but stewards. None of this stuff belongs to us, that we can defeat that pull. I had to learn in the Army. I've got to let the Army be in charge. I'm going to have to relent my life to them if I'm going to get through this experience and to prosper in it. If I continue to fight this, trying to get other things to be in control, I'm going to lose. This is what life is about. It's giving ourselves to something. Jesus said, you can't have two masters. You can't have two masters. You can't have money and God both. And they are in absolute conflict with each other. So pick the one you want. He didn't say, so I'm going to take it all. I'm going to take money away from you so that it won't be there. It is there. We have to choose. What I'm saying in the book is that we as a church have not done the best job possible in helping people to give control of their lives over to God by defeating that pull that money wants to control us. We know it's never been successful. We know that money has never succeeded in bringing us everything it's promised. We know, on the other hand, in history that God has always kept His promises unto us. And yet we still fall vulnerable to that call and to that plea. I want our churches to take this enemy on, that stuff can save us, that stuff should be in control, to give ourselves fully unto Christ. That's what stewardship's about. It's not about the money. It's about who's in control. And when we give ourselves to Jesus Christ, He becomes the controller. He becomes the one who influences our decisions. He becomes the one that manages our lives for an eternity.